Exactly.
It's not being greedy. It's not being stingy.
No.
It's being self-aware and taking responsibility for the things that you need to do for you.
Welcome to the Tea On, where we sip tea and we talk about things. That's basically it. I'm Jazmin Kylene, and I'm here with the beautiful songstress, Savannah Cristina. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, and I'm excited because, and I was just saying this before, that I feel like it's really relevant in my life right now, self-care.
Yeah.
And obviously it's been a huge thing for you lately.
Yeah? It has. It
So,
definitely has. I mean, it's been the running theme of my life lately.
100%,
so.
Which I feel like every girl in her 20s right now should just be like really.
Yeah, you would think, but it's something that I think we don't get the permission to do.
Exactly.
And so that's why I've been pushing it so much, because I just want to give people that permission.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I've seen you've been doing it boldly and loudly and unapologetically, and I feel like on the show I'd like to have meaningful conversation about, whatever's relevant in our generation, and I was like, who better to sit with and what better to talk about than like being selfish?
Yeah.
And I told someone earlier that I was going to have a conversation about this on camera today, and they were kind of like, I don't know, they had sort of an adverse reaction to it because I think there's sort of a negative connotation with the word selfish in itself.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I get, but I feel like that's why we need to talk about it, because I think there's pros and there's cons. But before we get to it, I love a good statistic, Jazmin. So I looked it up, and obviously there's a lot of different opposing opinions on it, but there was an article talking about like the pros to being selfish.
Right.
Number one being that you'll be healthier, because I think when you're selfish, you're focused on you and taking care of yourself, not just emotionally, but physically.
Yeah.
You'll have leadership roles, because I think you're more confident when you're taking care of yourself.
Makes sense.
You'll have better relationships because you're a better version of yourself.
Definitely that part. Period.
And you'll be happier, which I felt happier taking selfish initiative.
I mean, that's unavoidable. Just having a better outlook on life when you take care of yourself is like, that's the major key. Exactly. But like I said, I mean, it's something that people have their reservations. Yeah. And especially the word selfish. Yeah. It kind of just makes people feel guilty. Yeah. And it's not something that should make you feel guilty. It's something you should really indulge in.
Absolutely.
In the right way and everything in moderation. But it's necessary. Yeah.
I totally agree. Perfect. So let's get into the questions. So what made this be your mantra for 2020? Like, was there a certain thing that happened where you were like, girl?
I felt like I was really stretching myself very thin. Right. And I was worried about everybody and everything, but I wasn't worried about me. And it was crazy. And I just kind of, something snapped, and it was like, I can't keep living like this. Yeah. I didn't know what I had to do, but I knew I could not continue down the path of like completely disregarding myself and putting everybody else before me.
Right, absolutely.
So I was like, I'm gonna go to the beach.
I'm gonna go to the beach and the big song, and just casually go viral. I have huge people-pleasing qualities about me. Yeah. That like have stemmed from my childhood. Mm-hmm. And
because that's what we're taught. I mean, it's put inside of our schools. We're taught to disregard our needs. That's how the world keeps moving. And it's like, you really have to step out of the things that you've learned and make a decision to be like, you know what? Let me make sure I'm good. Yeah. And I mean, that's why I preach it so heavily, because that aha moment doesn't click for everybody. Right. I've gotten a lot of backlash from people just the other day talking about, how my brand and how being selfish is very, very, very like distasteful. Yeah. And I just know that they just need to have that aha moment. Like they have yet to actually
You'll get
experience
it.
Exactly.
You'll get it.
Exactly. So I preach to the people who receive it, and the people who don't agree, I'm just kind of like, one day it's going to click and you're going to go to the beach and be like, oh, this is what she was talking about.
100%.
So I'm just waiting on that day.
I totally get you. It's an organic thing that I fell into as well. But just the whole negative connotation, I don't really get it. Yeah. Where is the line that you think borders being too selfish, if that makes sense? Or where it goes into a place of greed?
So I think when the people around you are experiencing depravity and you know that you can help, but you have no good reason on not helping, I think that's when the line is drawn. But I think with everything, there has to be moderation. Yeah. You can be selfless to a point where it's unhealthy.
Absolutely.
But yet people find so much virtue in being selfless. And it's like, no, you can be selfless to the point where you're hurting everybody around you. So there has to be, exactly, there has to be a balance with everything. Absolutely. And I think just that selfish And that's why we have to talk about being selfish, because it needs to be done in the right way.
Yeah.
And if we don't talk about it, then it can't be done in the right way.
Exactly.
It's not being greedy. It's not being stingy.
No.
It's being self-aware and taking responsibility for the things that you need to do for you.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
It's a balance.
How are you expected to be a version of yourself that you're able to give if you're not even giving to yourself?
100%.
Yeah, and I think people are more willing to be selfless to a point of detriment,
Of course,
than they are to themselves. If that makes
well,
sense.
here's the truth.
Yeah.
People like to avoid fixing their own problems.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So they spend a lot of time fixing other people's problems. And when their stuff isn't together, they get to say, well, I did this for that person, this person. But what did you do for yourself? And it's like...
That's where they get their validation
where they get their validation from. But at the end of the day, it's like, you're still not fulfilling your purpose, which is fixing you and loving you and taking care of you. So it's just
harder to. I think people aren't willing to do the work.
They're not, and they're willing to do everything else but that. So when you say something like self-care, self-love, selfish, and you see those people get uncomfortable, it's because they're not ready to face themselves. They're not ready to do that work. And they don't want to take responsibility for themselves, so they rather just take responsibility for everybody else around them.
100%.
And that's where the hate comes in.
Wow, we got heavy, but it's very true. You have to look in the mirror, and then times that's a challenge. But I could not recommend it more. Like working on myself, it's difficult, but it's the most fun I've had. It's the most healing, and it's a weight off your shoulders. So
it is.
A, accept that there's stuff to work on, there's stuff to heal, but B, know that you're worth it and that doing your best is good enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
definitely.
Try it. I don't know.
Yeah, I recommend it.
I recommend it.
That's my message. All 2020. I'm not preaching anything.
I'll recommend it.
Literally, I just self-care.
I
you can't go wrong with that. You really can't go wrong. So, you know.
Do you recall a specific time in your life where you should have been more selfish?
I think just maybe my entire life. I think that if I would have thought a little bit more about myself, I would have made different decisions. I mean, I'm glad that things went the way they did, but things as little as what major to take in college, or what you wear, or who you hang out with, you realize that all of those things are affected by everybody else around you and not what you want to do.
Absolutely.
So I think my whole life I kind of just lived for other people. You know, we live to impress. Yeah. We live to make people like us. Yeah. And I think if I was being a little bit more selfish, I would have done the things that made me happy, played the sports that made me happy, and not really... Unapologetically. Yeah. So, I mean, it didn't click till a few months ago.
No, listen. But it's really enough in your life. You may feel like, damn, it took me all this time, but... We're at a beautiful age to be coming into this realization, 100%. I would say. I agree. I think everything happens for a reason, and I think every people-pleasing moment that I've had has led to a moment where I've learned and shaped me. But
definitely,
girl, there are some breakups I needed to be much more selfish about.
Yeah, definitely.
There were some relationships that I should have put myself a bit.
But you got to think too, in certain roles and in certain places in society, you know, women are always taught to give. Especially, in certain cultures, we're taught to be the givers, and we're not really taught to be the ones that are selfish. We're not really taught to be the ones to do best for ourselves, and it's kind of like we have to unlearn all of that behavior. We have to unlearn it. It's going to take years.
So much of this is unlearning.
Yeah, and it's society, and it's like it's songs like Self-Care that it's going to change the narrative of what women should be thinking and saying, and it gives ownership to us. I remember being in relationships and being like, I gave him this and that, and I was there for him through this and that, and I wanted somebody to give me like a gold star for being a ride or die. And it's like it wasn't. I should have been focused on me. And that's what I should have been bragging about. So,
but you are now.
Well, yeah, now I am.
I know. I honestly. What's your self-care routine? Like, are there certain things that you do?
I love to go outside, get active.
Yeah, being outside is huge.
Yeah, for real. I like to listen to music.
Make music too.
Yeah, make music, of course. See, that's been my biggest thing, is just creating the songs that I need to hear. So it went from listening to other people. I really just listen to my unreleased tracks. Every time I go through something, I make a song to help me through it. And that's just been my way to get over every single hurdle. Like,
that's beautiful.
It's crazy.
That's so powerful.
self-love to the fullest.
Yeah.
I'm literally coaching myself. Through
you
my shit.
probably tap into like your higher self when you're making that kind of music, so that whenever your ego or wherever the other stuff gets in the way, you can kind of go back to
100%.
who you are.
It's like being your own mentor. And you know, I would always like go through stuff, and I would call like people like Kylene, my engineer, be like crying, be like, go listen to your music. I don't know what you asked me for advice for. You already know the answer.
Yeah, you always know.
I think everybody should have that kind of guidance from within.
Totally. Yeah. For me, like I journal a lot. So even like reading my past entries, I think is my form of that, because I'm not a singer, obviously. But I think that, totally. That's a beautiful thing. I also go outside. Meditating has helped me a lot too. Just, I don't know, making sure inwardly I'm good.
100%.
So that outwardly I can be good.
So that you can be better. I mean,
so
you can be a better person. I remember having such a funky attitude, and it's because I had so many things inside that I needed to heal. And I wasn't of use to anyone around me, because I couldn't interact in a way that was healthy. So it's like, once I fixed me, I was better for everybody else around me. But I had to be selfish to do that.
100%.
So,
yeah. Another thing I wanted to ask is that I think as far as self-care goes, there's kind of like a commercialized idea of what that is. And I think it's kind of become like bath bombs and face masks, which are beautiful things that do make us feel good.
Right.
But yeah, what's your opinion on just like, I think, the watering down of what real self-care is?
I think it sometimes it gets really, really shallow.
Yeah.
And I made a post about it the other day, because I had like a bubble bath picture or whatever. And I was like, self-care isn't always this glamorous, but you know, just make sure you get some rest today.
Sometimes it is, though.
Sometimes it is.
Yeah, but it's a part of it. It's a bigger thing.
But it's really the little things.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's turning off your phone after a certain time, which is something I'm still working on. It's blocking people's numbers. It's calling certain family members that you haven't spoken to. It's the little things, and I think we make it. Yeah, like women sometimes are like, well, you know what? I can't afford self-care. You know, like one of my friends said that to me. She's out in New York. She's like, I can't afford to take the day off. And I'm like, great. But on your day off, make sure that you do the things that you need to do. Yeah. Because self-care is affordable. It's not always attainable for everybody. And that's something that I'm actually working on right now through a separate thing that I'll talk about another time. But it's definitely attainable. Yeah. Like meditation is free.
It's free. It's yours. Free. You have it already. Absolutely. I would 100% agree with that.
So I never try to preach, you know, you need to, you know, go to the top of Mount Everest and meditate and get, because a lot of people don't have that. But you can definitely make self-care work for you.
Take those 5 minutes and really just like check in on you.
100%.
Huge. Absolutely.
100%.
What's your relationship with saying no? Because that's been something that I dealt with a lot when I was younger and really had to overcome.
I think now I'm realizing it's something that we all struggle with. Yeah. It's something that I definitely struggle with, because as, you know, an entertainer and as somebody who, my job is to please people, really. Right. It's hard for me to disappoint. And in my life, I just always wanted to be the one to come through for people. But like I said, if you're not coming through for yourself, you can't help anybody. Yeah. So like, if I know something is going to put me at a disadvantage, or I know something is going to mess up my schedule, I'm kind of just like, no. And you got to say no the first time. You can't say maybe and then say no after. And that's something I had to work on. Because at first I'd be like, I'm a C. And
I was always an I'm a C, even though I knew it was a no, but it's uncomfortable to reject somebody. And
100%.
Sometimes you just gotta straight up be honest with yourself.
Yeah, and you can tell the person, like, and I've been more transparent with people, like, look, I got a lot going on right now. I can't. Sometimes you have to be transparent so that the no can really mean something and the person gets where you're coming from. So I've been working on it.
And that can empower them to do the same. You know what I'm saying? I think we're trained to, like, you know, do it, say yes to everything. Yeah. And it's like, no, I decided that I'm prioritizing myself.
There's this movie with Jim Carrey called Yes Man. Yeah. Where he says yes to everything and like his life gets better. Yeah. But it also gets so chaotic. And I think in the real world, like in the real world,
symbolic.
It can go, your life can just go horribly wrong if you don't say no.
Yeah, you just gotta be discerning, y'all. Do you think that you can truly love yourself and not be selfish? Like, do you think that they're...
I mean, I think the two things go hand in hand in loving yourself. So just like when you love anyone, when you're in a relationship, when you have a child, there are certain things that you put on the back burner for the person that you love. Yeah. And in the process of loving yourself, there's going to be a lot of things that you're going to have to neglect in order to take care of you.
Yeah.
So I think at certain times, yeah. But like I said, balance. So the two go hand in hand, but it's not like you have to live a selfish life.
Yeah.
Sometimes self-love looks like helping other people. I've worked with nonprofit organizations since I was 15 years old. I raised a lot of money for, things in my community. And
it's a beautiful feeling.
It was beautiful, and I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
But when I wanted to do it, you get me? And it helped me.
That's really important.
But I never felt like I was guilting myself into doing it, or that I felt like I was putting myself at a disadvantage by helping others. So I think, it's possible. You can definitely be selfless, selfish, but you need the two.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a matter of prioritizing what is fulfilling to you.
Yeah.
And and not feeling guilty about it or any of that. It looks different for everybody, but I think the whole negative connotation, like I said, of it's just a misunderstanding, which is why conversations like this are really important.
It's very important. Yeah. And people need the permission to say no. They need the permission to be selfish. Yeah. And that's really why I wrote the song, because I just want people to not feel so guilty about making sure that their mental health is stable.
100%. Yeah. It also all comes back to, and like my mantra for 2020 has been balance. Yeah. And it's something I've worked with in therapy about and everything, because I think that, I don't know, I think just maybe particularly just personally in my life, I put myself too much in things that don't really serve me, or I get really caught up in work and then I kind of neglect myself, or I get really caught up in caring for myself that I neglect work. And all of it is about just sort of making your own. I physically made my own pie chart of how I want to allocate my time in my life, and it's been a good self-care thing for me. So I don't know.
There are a lot of good apps that you can use to make your life a little less stressful.
Totally.
I love calendar apps now. And sometimes I feel like you kind of have to experience those two extremes in order to find your balance. You have to know what it feels like to be extremely selfless. And then you have to know what it feels like, which is a phase I had of being extremely selfish and just experiencing, And then I found my little ground. But you kind of have to live in both of those, extremes. So there's nothing wrong with that. But
I love that you said that.
It's just a balance. It's really a balance. And I think you spend your whole life, and that might be the meaning of life. It's trying to find
an out-of-body moment
that shit got really deep. That might be what life is all about. Trying to find that balance between selfless and selfish. Yeah. And that line of self-care that just goes throughout the whole thing.
The next song, honestly. Really though, because I feel like, and I just talked about this earlier, that there's no path to any sort of healing is linear. Yeah. You're always gonna be figuring it out, and it's always gonna be kind of up and down. So it's a matter of just always sort of finding that middle ground.
100%.
But yeah, what's next for you? Because I know obviously you've been in this huge self-care journey. Are we gonna hear more about that?
You definitely are. I actually created a lot more. There was a lot more to that story on that self-care day that I feel like people need to hear. So I'm working on that. I know everybody's been asking for a project, and that's something that I have coming.
But do it on your own time, because that's self-care. Exactly. Don't rush it.
No, definitely. Exactly. I definitely just work on my own flow. Yeah. So it's just whenever it's needed, I drop. Just have music. Yeah. Music on the way. Music and more vibes. I don't know.
Sounds good. I'm so excited to hear what you're dropping. Just how original you've been with your work and doing it in public places, and even that, and Alicia Keys peeping.
No, that was crazy.
Oh, my Aquarius queen.
She is an Aquarius.
Yeah, I mean that's just girls who love themselves glow different, and you're glowing, and you're in your purpose. So I'm excited to see what you do. Thanks. Where can people find you? Plug your stuff.
Everywhere. Savannah Cristina. Period. Savannah like Georgia, Cristina, Cristina, and I'm pretty much everywhere. YouTube, Twitter, obviously.
Yeah.
Twitter is where everything started. Yeah. And Instagram, all that good stuff. Spotify, iTunes. Yeah.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me. This was a conversation we needed to have for sure.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.